Help Wanted 2 comes out on December 14th, and I cannot wait for it. I have a lot of thoughts about the game, and I will be making predictions on it. But one of the things I thought might be really useful is to go over all of the relevant lore that might be important for the game before it comes out. So today's going to be more of a recap slash theory marathon going into the new game, specifically on games earlier in the franchise that seem to have some kind of weight going into Help Wanted 2. Thank you to Nyan Beardy for the idea, and Slices, put on your aprons, and let's bake ourselves a theory. We've got a lot of information to go over, so I think it makes the most sense to start with confirmed information in chronological order. So we'll start with the plot of Sister Location, then move on to FNAF 6, Help Wanted, and then Security Breach. After that, we'll go into background lore, what the books say, and then we will talk about speculation. So, until I say otherwise, I will only be talking about fully true and confirmed information from the games. And if I'm wrong, tell me in the comments, but I'll try to cite sources as I go. Because of the ending monologue after beating Custom Night, we know that we're playing as Michael Afton. He's gone down to the Sister Location bunker under the direct instruction from his father. His instructions were to, quote, put her back together again. Mike goes down to the Circus Baby party and rental facility to do basic repairs and check on the animatronics during night shifts. Those animatronics are Funtime Freddy, Funtime Foxy, Circus Baby, and Ballora. It seems as though this rental service is actually currently operational during the game. And I say seems to because I don't think it is, and all of the theming here points to it being a long-forgotten bunker that they've been trapped in the darkness with no interaction for years. But halfway through our journey, Mike is kidnapped by the Funtimes and put inside of a springlock suit. And while we're in it, we're here before our normal shift starts, and we hear these voices from presumably the daytime shift.
Okay, bring her over. Forward. More. Okay, stop. Set it down. Watch the step.
What happened to it this time? It just seems like these things can't go a day without breaking down.
Who knows? It's always the same, man. Some kind of hardware malfunction.
Well, hey, I have to be somewhere in 15 minutes, and this place gives me the creeps. Can we just get this over with?
It's all automated. We don't have to be here for it. Just get her on the rollers and we can go.
So I'm not sure. I guess it is still operational, but it sure doesn't seem like it. Regardless, the most important thing to note is by the end of the game, all of the Funtime animatronics have shed their exoskeletons and formed into one conglomerate endoskeleton mass known as Ennard. Ennard tells Mike that they need him to get out of there. To do this, they use a machine acronymed as the Scooper, which allows them to turn his insides into outsides. Then Ennard puts on Michael's skin, acting as though they're a normal human, and sneaks out. But as we see in the other Custom Night cutscenes, Michael's body soon rots and they have to flee to the sewers. But due to reasons that are at best speculation and we will get into later, Mike gets back up, seemingly possessing himself. Then there's some speculative amount of time between Sister Location and FNAF 6. But one thing we do know for almost certain is that all is not well with Ennard during that time. The Scott Games website gave us a conversation in the source code that goes as follows.
Be quiet.
You can't tell us what to do anymore.
Yes, I can. You will do everything that I tell you to do.
We outnumber you.
That doesn't matter, dummy.
We found a way to eject you.
You would be lost without me.
Haha, say goodbye to our friend.
Now, trying to say what this is technically speculation, but just so I don't forget to mention it later on, the vast majority of the community can agree that this is a conversation between two parts of Ennard, the spirit within Circus Baby and whatever made up the rest of Ennard, specifically because of the mannerisms. Circus Baby has called us dummy plenty of times in the past, and the laughing and frantic mannerisms of the other speaker matches very closely to someone we're going to meet very soon, which makes sense because this conversation is meant to explain why at the end of Sister Location we have Ennard, but at the beginning of FNAF 6 we have Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy. Essentially, Circus Baby was ejected from Ennard and they both formed new bodies because of it. So we move on to the next, possibly lore-relevant game to Help Wanted 2, Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria Simulator, or as I have been referring to and will continue to refer to it as, FNAF 6. So the new floor is just a never-ending hallway. Okay, so I guess the only question is, do I go forward or backwards? I mean, I guess I should be grateful that it's not symmetrical. If I fell asleep, I'd probably get turned around. Oh, a note. Nice. Today's video is sponsored by Scentbird. Oh. So for anyone that doesn't know, even though I like to smell nice, I hate musky scents. Like, I've never really ventured into cologne all that much, and I would just use deodorant and some antiperspirant because I just assumed all of it smelled like that musty old man scotch kind of thing. And cologne bottles are so expensive that I didn't want to experiment and find out and risk losing out on that money. Well, in comes Scentbird. For just $17 a month, Scentbird lets you choose a new designer fragrance and gives you a huge 30-day supply of it. That way you can try it out without having to commit to one of those giant perfume bottles, which is nice considering that those full-size bottles can go upwards of hundreds of dollars. And they've got so many options. Over 600 perfumes and colognes with plenty of unisex options, which is great for someone like myself. And I'm sure you can find one that can suit you, even if you like those musky scents that I don't. Me personally, I've been attached to and loving Purple Noon by Uso Vert. It's this one I have right here, and it's so floral, and it's light, it's airy, it's carried by the coconut undertones, but there's still a little bit of ginger that really packs that punch and says like, hello, you know? I've been wearing it every time I go out, and I think I might just keep wearing it. And these 30-day supplies are no joke. Take a look. They send them to you in this nice little pouch, and inside is this magnetic case to protect the vial. All you have to do is twist the bottle this way to unlock it, or twist it that way to lock it on the go. And look inside here. Look how much fragrance they pack in this guy for you. If this sounds up your alley, and I know it does, use my code RYTOAST55 to get 55% off your first month. It's just a little over $7. This is available in the USA and Canada. Thanks again, Scentbird, for the sponsorship. Check out the links below. Well, at least I smell nice now. So, forward or backwards? Forward it is. The plot of this game is very straightforward because the guy who's responsible for it literally just tells us all of it between two endings. The game follows Henry Emily's attempt to end everything. Technically, his name is speculation, but very lightly. He tells us his daughter's name is Charlotte, he's a co-creator of Fazbear, and we see in game that his audio logs are labeled HRY223. In the novels, a man named Henry Emily fits those first two descriptions perfectly, and Henry is very similar to HRY. But technically that is speculation, it's why I never fully named him in the game's only timeline. In this game, he creates a simulated pizzeria in order to lure in all of the active players in this plot thus far. As mentioned before, this works on Molten Freddy and Scrap Baby, but it also works on William Afton, now in this form, and Lefty, a animatronic built specifically to capture the marionette. He lures them in with the help of a volunteer, and by acknowledging that dying here seems to be something the volunteer would want, Henry implies that Michael Afton is the one doing it, but that again is technically speculation. Once everyone is there, Henry locks all the doors, lights it all on fire, and tries to burn everything to the ground for good. The next game sequentially is actually an in-universe VR game that's meant to own up to the bad reputation of Fazbear and make light of all the accusations. That game being Help Wanted. The actual plot of this game is similarly straightforward, but essentially we are a game tester trying to test out the game and make sure it's working because it was recently sent to our company after being mostly completed at a separate company. As we play, we learn that Fazbear claims some lunatic made indie games that were entirely based on nonsense, specifically to tarnish the brand, and that everything we know from those games are lies. It's implied that these games are the ones that we've been playing, but thanks to the tapes that were left in the VR game by the previous tester, we learned the actual truth. The last tester to play the game learned that Fazbear hired that game developer in order to make games that were based off of what actually happened, specifically so that they could point to those games and be like, look how crazy that is, that would never happen, even though they're true events. What's more, as a cost-cutting method, Fazbear had them scan in a bunch of old electronics and motherboards to hopefully bypass some coding aspects of the animatronics. And one of the things they scanned digitally manifested this entity, which stalked the first tester of the game so much that he tried to take his own life. Then, our character, according to the DLC and later Scott Games teasers, is a tester that falls victim to the entity, and has her mind partially taken over by it. The result of this being the very next game, Security Breach. Although the true identity of Vanny and Vanessa and them being the same person or not is still technically up to speculation, speculation, mostly due to this weird-ass fire escape scene. The game, for the most part, implies that the security guard Vanessa is secretly the rabbit costume-wearing Vanny. Vanny being the controlled slave of the manifestation within Help Wanted. She's doing her best to revive some corpse-fused rabbit animatronic in the basement, that basement being the FNAF 6 pizzeria fully underneath and buried the Pizzaplex. There is more to the plot of this game, but it'll be more useful to wait until background lore and speculation to go over it. Alright, the plot summaries are done, so now on to background lore and book talk. And again, in this section I will only be talking about fully true and confirmed information to the best of my ability, and I'll specify when talking about the games of the books. Starting again chronologically. In Sister Location, we can use the in-between night dialogue, the Circus Baby minigame, the monologue Circus Baby gives us under the desk, the information that Henry gives us in FNAF 6, and even lore teased on a darkened image on Scott Games' website. Like, this is very, very nearly confirmed. Circus Baby was built with a feature to kidnap a child when they were left alone, but very soon before opening Circus Baby Pizza World, William Afton's daughter Elizabeth snuck off to go play with Circus Baby and was left alone. Circus Baby's programming then took over and she kidnapped Elizabeth, but instead of just kidnapping her, she kills her. Elizabeth then goes on to possess Circus Baby, and she is the voice we hear through the majority of Sister Location. We also learn in FNAF 6 that the scooper actually stands for something. Quote, scalable creation of ulterior presence, which honestly is just the hackiest acronym ever. But essentially, it doubles as a oops all insides remover and a remnant injector. We learn in the books that remnant is the combination of soul energy and some kind of metal. This material is how animatronics are possessed, but it can also be melted down and infused into separate animatronics, passing on that possession. There isn't much relevant background lore for FNAF 6 to be honest with you, and that's mainly because all of the lore of FNAF 6 isn't in the background. It's just the plot, and we already went over that. So we'll move on to Help Wanted and Security Breach. The main background lore that I think is going to be relevant for the games is what we learn about Vanessa in the FNAF AR emails. That's Five Nights at Freddy's special delivery for mobile phones. We learn a lot about the Vanessa that's recently been taken over by the entity in Help Wanted, mostly through her stalker at the office, Lewis. To be fair, Vanessa seems to enjoy Lewis's company, so I don't know if he's actually stalking her, but personally, if a guy from HR was leveraging his position to keep an eye on me digitally and constantly emailing me even though I never email him back, I'd call that stalking. Regardless, through Lewis, we learn that Vanessa seems to have two sides to her. One is nice and orders flowers and chocolates and likes to talk. The other one is isolated, colder, and Googles how to induce compliance into human subjects. We also learn that she orders realistic-looking human face rubber masks and torture devices known as thumb screws, so yeah, she's doing well. A lot of the other background lore here is actually gained from the books. Now, it still isn't confirmed how much from the Tales from the Pizzaplex books are confirmed to be in the game, and the goal of this video isn't to decide on that matter. Regardless of what your opinion is on it, there's clearly information in these books that is crucial to understanding Security Breach, namely the Mimic. The books introduce a concept known as the Mimic. To be brief, its creator made a program that can copy and replicate anything that it observes, and Fazbear eventually put that program into endoskeletons that could adjust the size of its body. The goal was to have endoskeletons that could not only be programmed just by watching something, but could fit into any costume. However, the line was discontinued because the Mimic started copying humans in unexpected ways. In the games, we meet the Mimic as the boss of Ruin. We know this from the game files. It's been pretending to be Gregory the whole time to lure Cassie into setting it free. Speaking of Gregory, in the book continuity for as long as we know him in the book timeline, Gregory is also taken over by the entity from Help Wanted and presumably works in tandem with it at the Pizzaplex. Okay, I am finally done only talking in true and confirmed information. It is so weird and lengthy to do that. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I usually just lie and say whatever I want, but you have to understand that so much of this franchise is speculation based off of speculation. So once you try only speaking in confirmed information, fully 100% confirmed information, it sounds like you're retelling a story that somebody else told you. There is a lot of speculation around Michael Afton, and while why he continues to move forward after Sister Location. Not a ton of it is relevant to Help Wanted 2, but for the record, one of the prevailing theories is that because of being killed by the scooper, Remnant was left in his body, and that, plus his strong desire for revenge, could be enough to possess himself essentially, or at least the remnant that was left inside him. Now the fun part. I am more and more convinced that Help Wanted 2 will see us playing as Vanessa, getting the Pizzaplex ready and turning it towards Glitchtrap's takeover. Glitchtrap being the agreed upon name in the community for the entity within Help Wanted. That being said, what speculation about Vanessa and Glitchtrap would be most relevant for Help Wanted 2? One of the biggest pieces of it, I think, is the origin of Glitchtrap itself, or what it even is. After all, he is the main antagonist of Help Wanted 1, and possibly our boss in Help Wanted 2. So what is he and where did he come from? Some folks believe that some of William Afton's agony or remnant was accidentally scanned into Help Wanted when they were scanning old technology, and that is what allowed his consciousness to materialize within it. But I don't think it's that straightforward. After all, we learn in Security Breach that Vanny had Glamrock Freddy dig their way down to the FNAF 6 pizzeria, so theoretically it wouldn't have been accessible until after all of this has happened. Rather, I think it's more likely, as do many fans, that Glitchtrap is a manifestation of the Mimic 1 program, that older program from the franchise that hasn't been used in a while, but whose primary function was to copy and replicate what it sees. Keep in mind that Help Wanted is essentially a greatest hits album of all of the worst moments of the Fazbear brand. That, plus a program whose only directive is to copy and replicate, would create a pretty messed up entity. Granted, Glitchtrap seems to want to recreate William Afton's family, which is nowhere in Help Wanted, so William Afton's agony or remnant might still be involved, but it seems almost for certain that the majority of Glitchtrap is of the Mimic. As far as other important speculation goes, I would put all of it on Gregory. Once again, we can lean from the explanation from the books. One of the biggest mysteries of Security Breach is how Gregory gets into it in the first place, gets inside Freddy, and then once he's out, almost can't remember his own name and has nowhere to go afterwards. Not to mention, while in there, he has no records of his existence or of his family. That's because I think one of the incidents that kicks off the events of Security Breach is Gregory getting snapped out of his controlled state. We see that this is possible when Vanessa is snapped out of the Vanny-like state in the Good Vanny ending. This would imply that at some point Gregory was also under the control of Glitchtrap, and if he was, that would have needed to start at some point. Again, I point to this moment in the Help Wanted 2 trailer. We have no other explanation for this random floating daycare son, but it sure does look like we're going on a railed ride as it's getting closer. I still think whatever this is could be one very small segment of a grander scene of us turning Gregory to our side. And that's all the relevant lore I could think to bring up in the lead up to Help Wanted 2. Hopefully this video will be helpful for you guys making your predictions for what you think is going to be the plot of the game. And I know I'll be using this until the game comes out. If you want to know my full thoughts on the actual Help Wanted 2 trailer and blog post we just got, that video was last week, which you can find right here. Thanks again to Scentbird for sponsoring today's video, and don't forget to use RyeToast55 for 55% off your first month. In the meantime, a huge shout out to the best channel members, the Dough Risers, and until next time, as always, stay toasty, slices.